Hello and welcome. This is my wife Mary and I'm Ed, and we are Branch Davidian Seventh-day Adventists. We're excited you're joining us today. We present or expound on a principle or belief related to the SDA Sabbath School Quarterly each week. The Sabbath School for this third quarter is entitled Making Friends for God. This week's lesson is entitled Seeing People Through Jesus' Eyes. Sunday's lesson is on the second touch and focuses on Mark 8:22 through 26, which tells the story of a blind man whose friends brought him to Jesus for healing.
Sunday's discussion question reads, besides the obvious lesson that God uses us to reach people, what else can we learn from this story? What might it teach us, for instance, about how both the medical and the spiritual can have a part in healing and in ministry to the lost?
Surprisingly, this quarter, which focuses on witnessing, does not seem to have a chapter dedicated to the health message, the right arm of the gospel. This discussion question seemed to come as close to it as any of the lessons we are going to get this quarter, so we will focus a bit on it here today.
So let's start with a quote about the health message from Ellen White. She said, "The gospel of health has able advocates, but their work has been made very hard because so many ministers, presidents of conferences, and others in positions of influence have failed to give the question of health reform its proper attention. They have not recognized it in its relation to the work of the message as the right arm of the body. While very little respect has been shown to this department by many of the people and by some of the ministers, the Lord has shown his regard for it by giving it abundant prosperity. When properly conducted, the health work is an entering wedge, making a way for other truths to reach the heart. When the third angel's message is received in its fullness, health reform will be given its place in the councils of the conference, in the work of the church, in the home, at the table, and in all the household arrangements. Then the right arm will serve and protect the body."
This many of us know. What is important to see here is that the health message is an entering wedge, making way for other truths to reach the heart, and it serves and protects us as well. It is an important tool for the work of the church and in the home. Today we would like to point out some interesting statements from Ellen White concerning the health message.
But first, before I was an SDA, I used to pray over my food, not only to give thanks, but to ask God to make it nourishing. As an SDA, I learned that I was asking amiss. The food we eat is either nourishing and beneficial, or it's not. There's no amount of prayers that will convert junk food into healthy food. We are charged by God to take good care of our bodies and minds, and the inspired health message gives us the understanding to do exactly this.
So what is the inspired health message? Some Seventh-day Adventists might make the case that we shouldn't eat meat, or season our food with pepper, take drugs, even drugs prescribed by our doctors, drink alcohol or coffee, and should even stay away from fermented foods like sauerkraut, because these are things God said are unhealthy for us through Ellen White. When I first became SDA, some of this made a lot of sense, but we were confused by certain things Ellen White said we should not eat, like cinnamon. All the research we were seeing, which at the time we found convincing, was claiming that cinnamon had beneficial properties for lowering blood sugar. As you may know, modern research also shows that meat packaged in our grocery stores today is not an unhealthy food choice, though this doesn't mean we recommend eating meat. We'll get back to that in a minute.
Unfortunately, some of our SDA friends questioned the health message from Ellen White, seeing it as outdated, which led us to also question it in general. As this week's lesson points out, the blind man in Mark 8 could see clearly after 2 healing attempts by Jesus, and I feel as though this is somewhat apropos in our case, as we feel we have a clearer understanding of the SDA health message after looking at it a second time.
You may be surprised, as we were, to learn that the part of the health message given to Ellen White which was inspired is the following, as found in Counsels on Health, page 566. It reads, "Our workers should use their knowledge of the laws of life and health. They should study from cause to effect, read the best authors on these subjects, and obey religiously that which your reason tells you is truth."
Now here we can see where we should be getting our health advice from, the very best authors of today on the laws of life and health. We should study from cause to effect. We should obey that which reason tells us is truth. This is the inspired charge from heaven concerning our health.
So since knowledge on the subject of health is always advancing, we should be inquiring from the best health authorities in our day, just as Ellen White did in her day. Whatever the scientific findings of these health authorities be, we must accept them in preference to the scientific findings in the 1800s. Basically, the message God gave to his people through Ellen White is to follow the health findings of the science of our day. For more on this subject, please read a testimony called Experience Not Reliable, found in Testimonies for the Church, Volume 3, pages 67 through 79, where Ellen White made plain that our knowledge of health needs to be based on scientific experiments.
Interestingly, according to this inspired counsel from God to Ellen White, the place where we are to go for our health information, the authoritative source on health, is not Ellen White's writings, it's not even the Bible. It's the best science of today. To this point, Ellen says that only those authors who follow the laws of life and health should be consulted. They are those who, according to Ellen White, study from cause to effect. That is, they are those who note the relationship between actions and events and the results of those actions.
Science seeks to prove that the effects seen in an experiment happened after a cause. Many times, in alternative medicine in particular, scientific evidence for cause and effect is lacking. Homeopathy is one such example. Alternative medicine is technically alternative science, well, science falsely so-called, and to adhere to this alternative science is going against heavenly counsel.
Many SDAs today also misunderstand Ellen's statements against drugs. Many do not take into account that in the 1860s, medical science and the scientific method was in its relative infancy. Physicians did not know what caused malaria, tuberculosis, pneumonia, diabetes, etc. In her context, drugs referred to such poisons as tobacco, cocaine, creosote, strychnine, mercury, arsenic, etc., which were used on a trial and error basis, with emphasis on the error, as there was so much error dominating the field back then. U.S. food and drug purity laws did not go into effect until 1906, and drug safety laws did not follow until 1938. Drugs today, thankfully, are scientifically tested for safety and efficacy before becoming available for public use. The risk versus benefit of drug products today are much more well known, and scientific medical doctors today are better able to prescribe medicines or drugs, which will provide the greatest benefit while also weighing and taking into account the negative side effects of the treatment.
Synthetic insulin, for example, is one of the major life-saving breakthroughs of modern science. It is indeed a modern drug that is, in most cases, superior to insulin taken from animals and much more productive and humane as well, which leads us to our last point concerning the health message. That is today's most important reason for being a vegetarian. It is the humane way to live.
As we have previously mentioned, things were very different in the 1800s and early 1900s. There was a lack of understanding about foodborne illnesses. Meat was indeed often unhealthy because of the unsanitary conditions in which it was processed. Again, because of the achievements in public health in the 1900s, meat processed in the United States today is quite safe to eat.
But what about the moral issues surrounding the flesh diet? Should we eat meat even if it is safe and possibly even healthful to eat?
Ellen White had this to say about eating animals. Keep in mind that flesh food was injurious to the health in her day, but Ellen goes beyond the moral responsibility we have to take care of our health to the moral issue concerning the cruelty to animals that meat eating involves.
She said, the moral evils of a flesh diet are not less marked than are the physical ills. Flesh food is injurious to health, and whatever affects the body has a corresponding effect on the mind and the soul. Think of the cruelty to animals that meat eating involves, and its effect on those who inflict and those who behold it. How it destroys the tenderness with which we should regard these creatures of God.
She also said, the intelligence displayed by many dumb animals approaches so closely to human intelligence that it is a mystery. The animals see and hear and love and fear and suffer. They use their organs far more faithfully than many human beings use theirs. They manifest sympathy and tenderness toward their companions in suffering. Many animals show an affection for those who have charge of them, far superior to the affection shown by some of the human race. They form attachments for man which are not broken without great suffering to them.
And she continues, What man with a human heart who has ever cared for domestic animals could look into their eyes, so full of confidence and affection, and willingly give them over to the butcher's knife? How could he devour their flesh as a sweet morsel?
And she continues, in all cases, educate the conscience, enlist the will, supply good, wholesome food, and the change will be readily made, and the demand for flesh will soon cease. And also, is it not time that all should aim to dispense with flesh foods? How can those who are seeking to become pure, refined, and holy, that they may have the companionship of heavenly angels, continue to use as food anything that has so harmful an effect on soul and body? How can they take the life of God's creatures, that they may consume the flesh as a luxury? Let them rather return to the wholesome and delicious food given to man in the beginning, and themselves practice and teach their children to practice mercy toward the dumb creatures that God has made and has placed under our dominion.
So we can really see how the health message is the right arm of the gospel. It promotes medical science and life-saving medical scientific advancement. It promotes personal health, well-being, and temperance. And it promotes care and compassion for all of God's creatures. This tender care for the animals not only positively affects the creatures under our dominion, but also positively affects our human nature. It is easy to see how powerful this message is, and how, when properly conducted, the health work is an entering wedge, making a way for other truths to reach the heart.
If we teach a version of health reform that fails under scientific scrutiny and does not stand up to moral principle, it won't help the cause of the third angel's message. It will hinder it. But if we come to understand true health reform, which is scientifically sound and morally upright, it really will attract people to the other points of our message.
Thank you for staying with us through the entire video. We invite you to visit our website, www.bdsda.com, to learn more about who we are, and just as important, who we are not. Please join us each week as we will continue to offer new and interesting insights for your Sabbath School studies. God bless.
Many blessings.